Hello, welcome to Soft Human Voice. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you remember your divine source connection. I started this podcast to remind us all that we are not alone. We are all loved, you are wise, intuitive, and have way more co creative power in your life than you may think. This is a great intro to our guest today, Alice Inoue. She will be talking to us about manifestation and co-creativity with me. Alice is my dear friend, and I'm going to introduce her in a moment. And just mic check for myself. I want to introduce myself first, just so I don't forget. I'm Jessica Shepard. In case you are not familiar with me, I have had several decades as a professional counseling astrologer. I am an author. I've written 5 books, starting with The Love Alchemist Notebook, Magical Secrets to Drawing Your True Love into Your Life, which is about co-creativity. That's who I am, and I'm doing multiple things all the time, including this podcast and writing on Substack and doing some Qigong as well. I'm doing a Qigong teacher training. So that's me, and I want to introduce my good friend, Alice. And let me just read her bio. Hi, Alice. Am I saying your name right?
Inoue, yeah.
Even though we've been friends for years, I'm like, am I saying it right? Because her assistant put a little pronounced this way. And I'm like, oh. Alice, my friend Alice, the nationally award-winning author and life expert, as well as the founder of Happiness You, a business dedicated to personal growth and workplace well-being. For over 2 decades, she has helped individuals and organizations move toward positive change. Alice is also the creator of the Master Your Superpowers personality assessment used by companies like McDonald's, Walmart, and Gap to strengthen leadership and team communication. And she is the author of 10 books. Alice is committed to helping people navigate life and business challenges with renewed insight. So here we have Alice, one of my dear friends. Welcome.
Yay, I'm super in this time that we get to join together digitally. We've done things together personally, but I'm
Yes.
happy to be here. And what a great topic we have for today.
I feel like we have a lot of experience in this topic of co-creativity. I want to talk with you about this because I'm trying to co-create a book deal, right? An agent, which is a little bit different than what I've done before. I've gone directly to a publisher. So there are more steps involved and definitely more creativity than I've done in my last publications. I noticed that as I'm doing this process, some things that I've done have kind of come back into my mind. Some ways of being that are kind of different from who I was before are surfacing too. And like, oh, I don't need that so much, or I don't do that anymore. So this whole topic of co-creativity is just interesting to me as I go through this process. So I thought, who else does this so well? I mean, you've created an Alice empire. And if you're not from Hawaii, you may not know of Alice, but if you are, you know of Alice. You just do. Because you've created such a name and a place for yourself. Alice just has such history here, and we could go into that. But I think that will lead into our first topic, which is, what was your first experience of manifesting? And did you call it that at the time? Did you even use these terms that we now use?
It's funny. I think that for the first part of my life, up until I was about 40, I didn't have access to this kind of language like create, manifestation, abundance. That all started when I got into the astrology and spiritual world. I didn't really call it manifestation, and I still don't, even though that's the language we use. I think it's just like, what do I want? And very early on, I learned that if I want something, not only do I have to come from the point of, I want this, but how is it going to serve the people that I want to do this for, right? So I started realizing there's a balance to it. Then I started realizing the more I focus on what's not happening, the more likely I am to not feel like it's going to happen. So I think it was just a combination of all these different pieces put together And the first time I really wanted something, I think we all want certain things. Oh, I want this, I want that. But when you really, and maybe we can talk about this later, the ego that wants something, or your actual, truly your soul destined sort of path, and there's a difference there. But I think the first one was I wanted to be a columnist from a child. I loved Dear Abby and Ann Landers, and I used to actually put up these little stuffed animals and give them advice. So I always knew that I wanted to share wisdom. And then I saw the column. I thought I wanted to do it in that form. And so I went to the newspaper, like I met somebody at the newspaper, like a publisher or somebody. And the first thing is, do you have a journalism background? What do you know? And I really did not have any of that. In fact, I got D's in my writing classes, and I was told that I was never going to be able to write. I still really felt like that was something that was soul aligned for me in some way, shape, or form. I had a method that I used, and it was simply that I wrote down my heart inspired vision. It was probably similar to what you have for your vision of your book. My vision was to be a sought after columnist in the largest publication in the state of Hawaii. That was what it was. And then what I do know is that back in that time, everybody was talking about the law of attraction. And I knew there was more to it. I knew that if I had a desire, I had to put forth effort to make that happen. So I started logging down all the things that I am doing with a date. I called this person. I submitted these things. I wrote all that. They always say, set it and forget it. But when you really want it, you can't really set it and forget it. I think it was the sheer diligence. I can't remember how long it took to get it, but it wasn't overnight. I'm going to say it's probably like a year or two of really desiring it. And then one day, that one publisher who said there's never any room in the paper just said, do you want to submit something and try it out? And that's what happened. But then it just stopped there. Didn't just start there. I was a half a page every other week. Then I started envisioning I wanted to be every week. That eventually happened. Then I started writing down I wanted to do this every week, and I wanted a full page, and I got that. So this is 3 columns ago. I did a Go Ask Alice column. I did all these different columns. Anyway, long story short, I've been doing this for quite a few years now. And that was my first example of it, that yes, you can get something if you feel that it's soul aligned for you. And I wouldn't have gotten it if it wasn't soul aligned.
Yeah. And so you said that you started this process before you were familiar with any kind of metaphysical techniques.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because somehow we've all survived without metaphysical techniques. Human race is still here, right? And it's kind of like there's this catnip sometimes about the technique, the law of attraction. And, I've found that sometimes that conditioning of what you're supposed to do can override just the common sense factor. And of course, I've found that to be true for all of things like astrology and what. Yeah. So you started before we had any of this kind of framework, which is mental. You started in your soul, in your heart.
It was a vision. I had this vision.
And so when you say vision, was it actual something that you could see yourself doing in your mind's eye, or was it something you felt? Can you describe it?
Yeah, it was not like I did a vision board and wrote other people's ones. It just felt like me and the next best expression of myself. And then I had the confidence that I had the wisdom. I just didn't have the framework to share that wisdom. When it's manifestation oriented, there's no impatience to it. When you want something like a new pair of shoes, very simple. But I want, I like one. I want to go shopping. Want to get it. It's like this frenzied kind of desire. It was almost like that knowing that this is who the next expression of myself is. So it was just a real strong feeling, and it wasn't even a desire that I talked to people about. Like it wasn't like, oh gosh, I want to be a columnist. Support me on this. Who do you know? It was just really quiet, and I think a lot of times the stuff that is really right for you is a lot more quiet. I think that was probably it. And then when I got it, it wasn't like I jumped up and down and said, oh my God, I'm now a columnist. It was just, oh yeah, how exciting I get to write this. Oh my gosh, it's in the paper. This is cool. So it wasn't this high up and high down. And, I think now time is accelerating. We're all feeling it. I really think that we're just moments away from getting all these different soul aligned desires to happen.
Interesting topic. So
Yeah.
Alice, also
I did want to share. I remind myself of now, and I have this sheet and it says, anything that's possible is possible for me. So anytime I have a desire and I think I'm not good enough, smart enough, I don't have the right connections, I just think anything that's possible, it's possible for someone to get whatever it is that I'm seeing for myself. So it becomes like a natural thing. So I
yeah,
think of manifestation just as we live life and we're just manifesting along the way. One thing I will share that I think is important is that you have to be aware of the downsides of getting what you want. Because a lot of times we just think it's all good. I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. But if you recognize, and this is what I did do, like, okay, the downsides, I'm going to have to be accountable. Somebody's going to not like my rating. They're going to edit it. I have a deadline. So you have to know the challenges that come along with the joys of what you want. Otherwise, you won't get it. You have to understand all of that. So you have to understand not only what I want, what I'm going to do for the viewer or the reader or the person receiving my work, the challenges, the upsides and downsides. So it's all about balancing it out from here to there to up to down. Then it's seamless. Then it's balanced. Then there's nothing else you can do but trust.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of layers to it when you try and break it down into all of its different components. But I like talking about how it felt like an unfolding. There were highs and lows for you. You weren't attached to it to the point where when it happened, you weren't like, it was almost like a matter of fact, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I didn't call my friends. I really just, oh, cool. This is cool.
Yeah. And I think that's really also true for the things I've manifested when we're talking about the components of that. It wasn't my first co-creative act to draw in my soulmate, John. I just happened to write about it. But it was a really significant one. These things don't happen overnight. It could be a year or two, or the timeline loosens when you really are aligning with the soul vision. It doesn't matter. You get that if you really sink into, oh, this is like a natural unfolding of my soul path, you feel this, at least I do, this patience.
Yeah.
This patience with what is, because there's a part of you that knows it's already there. And there's a part of you that, for me, I've learned that's key as well. Like recognizing them, like, oh, yeah, I am an author. Yes, that is who I am. An author writes and stuff like that. The thing I was going to say about the Love Alchemist notebook and manifestation, I remember one of the first things I learned how to do was to loosen my grip. Like, don't hold on so tightly. If your wish is a flower, you're going to crush it. First chapter 1 was like, first thing you need to do is just call off the search. And it was kind of a more dramatic way of saying, just let it sit, put it on the back burner. And then the kind of consecutive steps, it's that balance. It's not about totally sitting in trust and faith, which you need to cultivate and absolutely know how to do that. And you absolutely need to know how to surrender it and all of these things, but also take practical steps. And I think that is often kind of a missing piece with the law of attraction too.
We forget the law of attraction. The reason why it all went downhill for all those people is like, oh my gosh, I just have to think about what I want, think about what I want. We recognize there's the law of attraction, but there's also the law of polarity. So the more you get what you want, the more challenges are going to be in your life. So you're going to always have that. You're manifesting something, you're getting something great, and then the shoe drops, you get something bad, and then we focus on the bad. And then we start getting out of our sync. The balanced way is if I get this thing that I feel I want, what are the downsides of it? If I can hold that polarity, then I'm not surprised. I'm not living in a fantasy. I'm living in the reality of if I get this thing, it will be something that's a next expression of myself. But I recognize I'm going to have two sides to manage at that point. A lot of times they want one without the other, or they want one and they get something they didn't expect. And so they manifested something that they didn't really want. So it's important to be super clear on your vision and also super clear on what you're going to do on your part. You can't just throw the ball out and expect the universe going to bat it right back to you. You have to start running and doing stuff to show the desire. And then sometimes along the way, you might even realize, I don't want that.
Right. So just in my own process, I know that you have a similar perspective. The glass is always half full and half empty. There's a balance always occurring. You can look at one side, you could look at the other. There's going to be things I don't like or that I may need to get more comfortable with if this manifestation, this co-creative thing happens for me. There's going to be all these other elements if I'm not getting it when I want it. If I'm feeling like, oh, I'm ready, I go, okay, the glass is both half full and half empty. And I'll ask myself, like, well, what is it that I'm getting right now that's allowing me to get further down the road and deal with whatever comes with what I'm attracting? For me and my own author process, I felt like the first time I wasn't quite ready for the public thing as I'm not getting the speed I want, if I'm not getting the response I want. I've queried 45 agents and I haven't gotten, and of course I want somebody to say yes, but I'm also acknowledging that the speed at which this is happening, which is nice and slow, is allowing me to fortify all my systems, make sure that my nervous system is able to deal with what's going to come with that vision when it happens. So if you're in that place of like, I want it, I know it's aligned with my soul, I could feel it in my heart, this is so me, it's going to happen, and it's not happening yet. And we talked about the letting go of the attachment, focusing on the steps that we may need to take and the intentionality and dedication around that, because oftentimes that's very true. It's, you know, if you want to be a world-class author, you need to do certain things to get there. It's not just a prayer, a candle lighting and a spell. So we talked about those, but there's also this piece of when it's not happening, right? And we need to adjust or we need to pivot and maybe figure something out in a new way. But also that perspective, we need to keep coming back to making sure that we're not in the trance of scarcity, which is this book that I was thinking about. I ordered it when we were talking about having this podcast because I feel it's so prevalent and it's the core of every human being. Scarcity, like there's not enough. We can know in our heads that's not true, even if, there's enough food in the world for everybody, for instance.
Yeah.
And yet still be holding a belief that it's not going to happen for me. That is such a huge piece of creativity. Can you talk about how you work with that? It creeps in as human beings.
Yeah, my go-to, which is easy for me because I practiced it for 20 years, but it's just like, what is happening? We always talk about what's not happening, but what is happening? And you could go back to that's gratitude, but I'm going to say it's awareness that if one thing is not happening, in the equal and opposite amount, there are things happening that collectively add up to what's not happening. And if you can stick with what's happening in equal proportion to what's not happening, then you bring yourself to balance. Everything for me is about balance, not getting too high, not getting too low, not getting too ahead of me behind. So for me, when you're in that state of balance, you're just walking through life, dealing with the challenges and celebrating the successes that you've created. So it really, to me, just comes down to if it's not happening, what is happening? That's all. And be like, well, that's not good enough. That's not what I want. I want X. Well, then you're just creating more resistance. If we believe that the universe is all knowing, that our soul is here for a purpose to get exactly what we want, and this is just part of our journey, then we can actually relax a little bit around that whole process because it's just a matter of time. And it's just a matter of alignment. That's all it is. Nothing is impossible. At some point along the way, you might decide, I don't want it anyway. I got the lessons, what I needed, and now I want on a different path. That's life.
That's the fun of it. That's the game. That's the mystery. If we can relax into it, if we can enjoy it, no matter what happens, we'll be happy, right? And so I think the idea of the vibration we're holding, and when you mentioned keeping in balance, and I said that's how I do it too with the glass half full, half empty, that metaphor helps me to ask myself what is happening, right? And get back into the other side of the equation. So I keep in balance with myself, because that sense of internal balance and not grasping and not going into the narrative of not having or blame of other people, all of it that can take your energy down. And I feel like that is where all that vibrational stuff with the law of attraction and co-creativity, I mean, some of it can be taken too far where you have to be positive all the time. And even I learned, like, when I first got exposed to metaphysical techniques in the science of mind church, whole strategy was to negate the negative. Just say it doesn't exist. And, you do that nowadays. And it's just like, are you kidding me? This,
Yeah.
I'm being oppressed. I deserve to have my perspective seen and acknowledged. And that is totally true. But when it comes to staying in the energetic vibration of what you want to create, you want to keep your signal high and clear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just that the more you know yourself, the more clear you are. The more clear you are about who you are, the more you know what is possible within your life, what sounds good. And then you know me, I have that left brain, right brain side. My left brain strategizes everything. I actually have written things like the vision all the way down to how that vision is going to happen and adjusting along the way. The truth is, I don't have anything that I'm trying to manifest. I just do what I want to do. And if there's life to it, there's life to it. And there's not. Did I enjoy myself along the way? Did it serve a small purpose? If it's not going to serve a bigger purpose, it wasn't meant to be. I appreciate the experience. And then I'm on to the next thing. In your case, it's a little different. You have put your time, love, energy for years and written from decades of experience. And you have a life project here that is right for the world. And I think that it's a little different than little tiny things along the way. This is a big deal. So it's going to take a big deal of effort and a big deal of time. I mean, it's possible. Maybe it's not the right time. It's not that it's not happening. It's not that you're not trying hard enough. I had told you this before we talked. You just need one person, just like you.
Yeah.
You have a real life example here of how Jessica became part of a dream goal vision I had. And this is the best story because I created this personality assessment. It was just going to be for families to get to know each other. Then it started becoming a thing that I could use with companies. Teams could get to understand each other through this elemental system. And wrote a book on it, had some success locally doing some trainings on it. One day I have another friend named Karen, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, Alice, I see this all over the world. I can see people using this." And I looked at her like, first of all, when, how, why, I'm fine with it as it is. But that opened up a thought like, I wonder if it could go outside of Hawaii. I wonder if. Well, then I start doing my little planning like, okay, how do I reach HR directors outside of Hawaii? So I'm doing the work. I'm actually doing the work because I have that vision. But guess what? It happened because Jessica says to her sister, "Oh, you must need Alice for your company." Sister works at a big company. Sister got the email, sent it to her HR. That HR sent it to another HR. That HR sent it to another HR who had lunch or brunch with a person at this global Fortune 500 company. And one thing led to another. Now I've been to Chicago 5, 6, 7 times. I'm going next month. We've trained over 1,000 leaders in the system. And that's because Jessica was the unknown. I was doing my own journey and this came along the way. So that's what I love about the universe. If it's meant to happen, it's just going to happen and you actually don't have a control over it. The best part about it was, Jessica, you remember this. I said, I got to meet with these McDonald's people. I was so intimidated. They were such high level. They had such high outcome. I remember telling you, I don't want that kind of work anyway. And so I said, no. They came back and said, oh, I said, because I can't understand your language. I can't give you the outcomes. And then the chief of staff says, we've never seen a system like yours. We'll help you get the outcomes. We became friendly. They helped me work the system to get the outcomes I needed. And now I have new friends in McDonald's that I absolutely love. And I get to share my system with people. The older I get, the more relaxed I get around this stuff,
It gives me goosebumps when you've told me this story before, obviously, and I was a part of it, but I just got goosebumps again. What comes to mind is when the universe wants to give you something, sit back and it will happen, right? Even when you said no, it was already predestined.
And here I am. I'm so grateful because I've learned so much. Not only have I helped people, I've learned so much to add to the system. I did a random podcast. I agreed to be on some random podcast. The interviewer had exactly the answers I needed to get my system to the next level, the technical things. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have gotten the next level of things beyond what was created. So it's like, of all the places, of all the people, of all the things, this podcast was from a contract from the pandemic where they're supposed to give me so many podcasts for whatever I paid for. And all of a sudden, this guy showed up and he's like one of my closest non-local friends. And
Mhm.
we're always sharing technology stuff that helps my business improve. So I feel like we just need to relax into life. Just do your thing, have a plan, keep going. But I was just telling my assistant Erin the other day, do you know that 85 to 90% of our business does not come from marketing? Like we send out marketing emails, we send out all these things to stoke the fire. But guess what? It all comes from other ways. So I think we just need to keep putting forth effort with that intention. The answers may come in a different form, but if you don't do something, you're just sitting there waiting for nothing.
Right, right. That openness to all the different forms, all the different ways that what you want can come to you. It's universally true in anything that I'm creating. We can simplify this back to relax, enjoy yourself, trust what's in your heart, keep taking the steps.
You know, putting that's in a whole thing. I don't know. It took me this many decades of life to really get that way. And people will say to me often, actually, gosh, you're so lucky. Like everything you touch turns to gold. It may be perceived that way and everything just flows and it keeps getting better. But it's because I'm putting in the fuel along the way. If you look at the behind the scenes, the stuff I do has nothing to do with my path, but the stuff I do actually forms the path in ways that I can't predict. And that's life, which makes it so exciting. So if a door closes, I actually feel thankful because then I know it's another path. And even though I put the time and energy into that door that closed, it's not wasted because that energy is intentional and positive and high vibe. And that's serving me in this next iteration, this next turn. And it took me literally, I started all this metaphysical, spiritual astrology thing, maybe like 25 years ago. I mean, it's about a good 20 years to be like, oh, this is how you live life. So it's so much less stressful now.
Oh, yeah, totally. And you brought up astrology. You don't know Alice is also an astrologer. So that was the first thing we connected over. When I first moved to Honolulu, I was looking for friends and looking for like minds, and I Googled you. I think I actually read your column in the newspaper first. And that's how I learned that I don't know, maybe I just Googled you because I liked your columns. You probably wouldn't have had astrology in that column at that point.
No, it was just sort of, I've had Collins and all the major publications. So, you know, it's probably there and it probably had some sort of resonance. And what's funny is we connected a few times, had some tea, and then the pandemic hit. We didn't talk for maybe a year or two. And then you came out with your intuitive energy deck. We reconnected. And felt like I planned to be like, oh, I need to know this person, Jessica, so I can get some astrological wisdom that I don't know and that I can use for contact. It's literally, it's just a heartfelt connection. If we're in our heart, then heart energy flows. If it doesn't resonate, no matter if someone tells you that you should do it, you shouldn't do it, it doesn't resonate. It's not in your heart. So that whole thing of listening to your heart is a big part of manifesting, right? Just what I want. But every day, am I doing things I don't want to do? Am I subordinating myself to this because of that? Am I playing small in my own little tiny world? That is going to contribute to whether you get this big thing or not. Your little tiny actions make all the difference. Tending to yourself first, I think, is the biggest.
Because you can't, it's like where people get confused, I think, is they want this thing, but in the rest of their life, they're not present. They're not aware to all of the co-creative choices, all the choices that you make. Like there was something I read, hundreds and hundreds. I said it in one of my intuitive reels, how many decisions we make a day. Well, how conscious are we of those decisions?
Yeah.
So it really does, like the more intimate you are with how you're feeling about this moment and this choice and this relationship and, what you're doing. And it really is you're building the field with your small awarenesses, right?
Right. And I think we don't give credit to the small stuff. We want the big stuff, but it's the small stuff that creates the big stuff. So it really just is coming back to self. A lot of people don't know, like, how do you do that? How do you do that? You have to listen to yourself. The only way I can do that, because most of the day is really busy and I don't have time to listen to myself.
I think a lot of people.
I listen to people and that reflects upon me. I always have some space to kind of be with myself every 4 days. for the last 25 years at least, I take 4 days off of
Mm.
people, 4 days off. And that means no schedule, no talking to anyone. I just want to just be with myself. And those are the most valuable times because that's when my visions are clearest. That's when I know I want. Because people have told me from the day I started doing this, Alice, you should do a podcast. It has never resonated with me. It's just not what I want to do. If I listened to what people said they want and I created a podcast, I would be unhappy. So it's like really just knowing who you are, where you are. And I think if you know where you are, then anything is possible. If you think you should be further than you are, or you're behind, or you're not good enough, everything is out of balance. I think that the biggest part about manifesting is starting with yourself and just like,
Mhm.
am I right here, right now? What am I doing or not doing that's blowing my vibe
Mhm.
today?
Right.
Did I say yes to my neighbor when I really wanted to say no? And then because I didn't want to be selfish and I'm working with all those thoughts, it's just so small. But that's what
The inner conflict that people walk around with and think that it's not important. I see that just in casual interactions. I really feel like just to validate that knowing oneself, I've gotten better at it over the years as I've gotten better at knowing myself. The years have brought wisdom. The years have brought practices, like you're mentioning, that allow me to go back into my own energy and get out of the energy of other people and all the stuff we pick up that we don't even realize. You know how aware of energy I am. A lot of people just don't recognize and understand how much the energetics of just sitting next to somebody else can affect you. Being in a room with people you're slightly not resonant with, hanging out with somebody who has a particular shadow quality they're not dealing with, it can rub off on you. Finding ways for me to clear that and get back into my center, find my backbone, find who I am again, release anything that's not mine, that hinges on knowing who I am, what
yeah,
I feel like when
yeah,
I am in my I am. So that's how I know when I'm out of it, you know? So, and so that's what your days off give to you. Like, oh, there's the clarity, right? Oh, because that's who I am. I'm naturally clear, right?
yeah.
I'm naturally full. I'm naturally abundant. So all those true self qualities, I'm really, interested in getting people to understand that that's who they are and everything else they need to learn how to let go of.
Yeah. And your path is not my path, and my path is not her path, and his path is not your path. We don't know where we are, and we compare and contrast to know where we are, but actually, it doesn't really matter. It's that interesting. For example, when I had the first idea to write a book back in 2008, self publishing was looked upon as low quality. Self published books at that time were cheaply made with lots of misspellings. But after I looked at the model, I thought that this worked for me. Many people said, no, you're going to ruin things, don't self publish. But for whatever reason, I listened to myself and I felt that was the right thing to do for me, for my business, for how I wanted to. I don't want to be a bestseller author. And, I don't want nobody has to know. It was for me. My purpose was different. And now looking back, I am really happy because
Mhm.
now I know how to do it. I have a bunch of books. I give them out. They're just more for like, hey, this is what I learned this year. Here's a book. It's just more for me than
Yeah.
anything else. I had a different vision, but I'm glad I did that. Some people say all these books should have been published by, but I don't want to deal with
Yeah.
like agents and publishing houses. I just want to
Yeah.
publish my little book and have it look the way I want it. It was interesting that even before I knew about listening to myself, there's something in me that anytime someone said, "Oh, you're going to be look at cheaply," I just thought like, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna make the best look self-published book ever. I'm gonna use a professional designer." So I do think
Yeah.
like we all know, but we get swayed by the opinions. And if you're
Exactly.
not anchoring strong, you're gonna go through the life lesson of listening to yourself before you can get what you want in life. So just get there now. It's not about what you're gonna get, it's who you are now, what you know about yourself, and how you conduct yourself day to day that actually is the answer more than anything else. And it's all like, because you're creative, I'm creative. I believe everyone is super creative and everybody can create. So I think that like we create from our center, that's the most powerful. We create from what somebody wants for us, we're going to fall flat. So I'm all about centering on self
Mhm.
without being selfish.
Being
Yeah.
selfish in the best way possible. It's interesting because people told me, "Oh, you should do a podcast." And I was like, maybe so. I didn't have an instant no, but it's taken me years to get this going. And I was just reflecting on that this morning. Alice and I are very different in some ways and very similar in other ways. So there's some interesting juxtapositions. I mean, we both have obviously self-published, but I can see why you took the path you took. And I can also see why at this point in my life, I'm wanting to take a different path. And it's just, it's listening.
Just feel right to you. I mean, I could go and go, look at Jessica, look at all the success I've had with self-publishing. Why don't you just do it? Save yourself the hassle of these stupid agents that don't see your value. But then you're like, that doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just sometimes when we say relax about it, it's hard because we're taught to want things, right? And it's just a weird place to be, honestly, for myself, even because I was never this patient.
Ah, I think this is a good place to end on because I would love for you to kind of say, like, at this place in your life, what qualities do you feel like you have? And you can share your age or not. I'll just say Alice is eternally young.
Yes, I will share my age. I'm proud of it. I am 61 years old as of today. I believe it's a mindset. I just want to be eternally young. So it doesn't matter how you look. I love the energy of vibrancy with wisdom. And having lived 6 decades, you get a bunch of wisdoms. Feel like there's so much more yet to create. And I enjoy the creation. I was going to sum it down into one word. When you want something that you want to manifest, it's really like, I talked about soul aligned. We talked about ego. It's just more like, I really want this. Let me just live my life in the most happy way because it'll come along the path when I get to that path. And I think that's the relaxing part of it. If someone told me that 20 years ago, if I would say, what do you mean relax? I think you do the work, you have the vision, you do the work, you check in, and then you tend to the small things in life. One day you get the letter, you're like, oh my gosh, natural next step. Even if it's not like the McDonald's thing, I turn it down. If it's right for you, it will.
It'll go, hello, what are you thinking?
But nobody says no to McDonald's. It's been the best experience in so many ways, but also challenging in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just recognizing no matter what, life is not here to make you happy. Life is here for you to learn. So get your lessons so that you can get your desires. That's my thoughts.
Absolutely. I see a quality of curiosity in you that is not only useful, but very vitalizing for any process of creating. This curiosity, like you constantly are curious about if this is working, or that's not working, or how can I make this better? And it's just like play for you. There's a real lightness around it too. It's not like I don't see in you a quality of perfectionism or trying to control things. I just see curiosity. I definitely feel that in your presence. So I don't know whether you have up leveled that as you've gotten older, embraced that more, but
Yeah. I just something about life is hard. You have to admit there's harshness, there's things going on that we don't care for. There's a lot of stuff. So it's not like, oh my God, life is so joyful. There's a lot of things that we could be very concerned about. But right here, right now, talking to you, I'm safe, I'm healthy, I feel good. I wanted to do this, asking me to, it's like I want it. We're in a good space. And so if next week somebody else asks me to do something and it's a no, it's just a no. And I think that feeling comfortable in yourself is your biggest magnetic attracting factor.
but just fully inhabiting yourself and feeling like you can say yes, like you can say no, or you're not worried about somebody getting mad at you, or if you are, you know how to work through that. Just this softening and maturity and kind of coming into that center of who one really is. It almost makes that question of what do I want to create next or manifest next kind of, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm in the flow of who I am. I notice that more and more for me. The best things, I can say my most fascinating co-creative stories at this point in my life were things that almost you would be like, well, that just happened. Well, yeah, it just happened because I was in the flow of myself and I know how to listen to myself. And I was walking by the rec center and I kept walking by the rec center, walking Magnus every day. That's what I do is walk by the rec center and walk Magnus. At the time, I was just beginning to do my Qigong training and I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I really just wanted to learn for myself. It was that joy, right? It was like, oh, I want to master this. It feels good in my body and I want to know how to take it deeper. I was doing this and I just flashed on this vision of myself, and it did feel very much like a vision of joyfully almost dancing inside that Monolani Center, which hadn't been used in over 18 years.
Yeah.
So my mind didn't want to even let me think about that as a possibility, but it kept happening. The vision kept happening. And I got frustrated with it. Kind of like to your point of like, no, the universe is like, yes. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the door and I'm going to copy down the number to call. And I'm just going to call and say, can I teach Qigong? Because I'm like seeing it in my third eye. No, I didn't say that, but so I did. And they were like, sure, if you become an employee. And I was like, okay, really? Because place has been closed for 18 years. And I thought, there's no way. No. Oh, yeah. Why don't you interview with us? It was so easy that now I'm teaching Qigong at the rec center. And it's been such a joyful experience. I just taught, I guess it was 60 kids last week. It was one of those things that I didn't have to work hard at it at all, obviously.
You had to call the number. You had to wait for the callback. You had to go get interviewed. So you're willing to do the journey to get to that vision. And I think that's the part that I didn't care for in the old days where they're like, all you do is meditate and visualize and
Right.
the synchronicities will happen. You have to put effort. Even if it's in the wrong place, the effort is going to be the payback. Sometimes you have a lot of effort over a period of years and the payback is 5 years later, 10 years later. So it's not always in the moment. That's the trust in the universe. Whatever you do or don't do has a value. And whatever is meant to be will happen. You can't force anything at all. We can't force timing. When it's time, it's time.
So why not just enjoy it in the meanwhile? Just enjoy your life, right? I think that would be a good place to wrap this up. But this is really fun. I really appreciate your perspective and your wisdom. And this is why Alice is a life expert in Hawaii, but also now in Chicago, McDonald's,
Doing a lot.
and other places. Yeah, San Francisco at the Gap.
So
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Thank you for being here. Thanks for doing this with me.
It was so fun. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to
Bye.
you soon. Bye.